Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the GFEL. I hope that you are well rested because we have another day of knowledge-filled sessions for you. Let's begin our day by talking about the real purpose of formal education. That is, to turn children into happy, balanced individuals who are well equipped with the right skills to deal with challenges for the future. Please put your hands together to welcome Dr. Anjali Prakash, founder and chairperson of Learning Links Foundation, who will share her take on the topic, Holistic Education for a Better Tomorrow. Dr. Prakash?
It is indeed an honor and a pleasure to be here at this forum. I'll start today morning by sharing this photograph which is on the screen in front of you. What does this photograph make you feel? For me, when I see this photograph, it is joyful, it is happy, and children immersed in the moment enjoying the rain. And it always brings back a memory of once when I visited a rural school in India. And as it was a hot, humid day, and as we approached the school along a dusty road, it was going to rain, and we were hoping, we should reach the school building before it pours. And we entered the school, there was a playground, we were walking, and it started pouring. Just as we thought we should run towards the building, we saw more than 100 children run out of the building, laughing and shouting and just enjoying the rain. And we sort of stopped in our tracks, and I stood and after many, many years got totally drenched and just enjoyed the rain. And for us, I think in education, if we can have children who are happy and enjoy these simple pleasures of nature, is I think something we should reflect on and keep alive in our children and in ourselves as we grow up. Yeah. So I'm from Learning Links Foundation. A little bit about our organization. We are a not-for-profit, 17-year-old organization working in about 19 states in India. Our mission is to bring good quality education to each and every child, regardless of their economic or social status. And we work with state governments, have live MOUs with 12 states, where our programs address needs of the most marginalized children. That is one spectrum of the work we do. The other spectrum in education with the private schools is where we work with cutting-edge new pilots which we can learn from. We are also partnering with the government for technology and innovation in schools, government and private schools, with the tinkering and innovation space where we are developing models for replication across the country. We also work in policy and advocacy. Is that the slide? Okay. We also work in policy and advocacy to help government formulate policies that would actually change the way education is transacted, change the goals of education so that children are ready for the future. Today's session, I know what is written in the booklet is not exactly what I'm going to present, but it is something that is very close to my heart, and I thought I'd use this opportunity to share it through two stories, one from the private school domain and one from the government school domain. The first story is about a young girl, Tamanna, a 14-year-old girl, doing well in school, happy, lot of friends, good hobbies, enjoying her life as she grew up. And suddenly she was suffering from a very severe case of acne. And acne is not uncommon in teenagers, it happens all the time. But for this girl, it was a big setback. Children can be cruel, lot of cruel remarks being passed, very unhappy with herself, the way she looked. Social media was not helpful with children posting close-ups of her face on social media. Gradually, we could see that this child is withdrawing, going into like a depression, not being able to do what she used to do, not being confident to, take on activities which she was otherwise doing very well. And we see her making friends online, and it sort of led up to a point where she got a friend who she was talking to all the time who said, you look great to me and I totally understand how you feel. And she agreed to go and meet with him. Just at the last moment, we do a lot of cyber wellness work with schools. Her friends found out, told the teachers, they all supported her through it, and they came to know that the person was not a young boy, but a 40-year-old man who wanted to enter into a relationship with her. With counseling, Tamanna is well and up and about and back with her work. But the story, what I'm sharing, is not about Tamanna alone, but many such young students who are not feeling well or happy or confident in themselves. And I feel unless that is in place, then all the excellent initiatives that we do in education, be it technology, be it helping them learn better, it's science, math, STEAM, tinkering, is secondary to that. First, children need to be happy and well, and then we can open out the world to them. I don't seem to be getting my slides. If you look at the statistics, they are really alarming. 1 in 4 teenagers suffering from depression in India. And this is when it's not really spoken about much. People do try to hide the fact if they are going through some mental problem. Adolescents experiencing mental health conditions of different natures globally is 20%. Again, a startlingly high number. And children failing to reach their full potential, be it cognitive, socio-emotional, globally, is 1 in 3. So this is really, really frightening. These are frightening statistics, and I think as educationists, we should react to these in a most urgent and immediate manner if we are to do good for our children. One thing I feel which has contributed to this is the compare and compete culture that we have created in education. There's one standard to rule them all. Our boards of education decide what needs to be assessed, whether a child is below average, average, above average, excellent, and we judge all children by those numbers. Also the emphasis on achievement gaps. We are always trying to help our children to do better, to fill the gap in this or fill the gap in that. We do not give agency or time for the children to actually flower out in what they are good at. And at least I can speak for India, where the education, the number of children we know is large. There's a lot of work that goes into our state governments when they are formulating policies and schemes for the sheer number of children, and their effort is to standardize everything. So that leaves very little space for children to maneuver and find their own calling. And I think this also adds to the stress of having to conform to what everyone thinks is the ideal way to go. Are you a meritorious student or not is a very narrowly defined definition today. And this also leads to a lot of stress. You're always being compared with something, you're always competing. Even if you get 8 on 10, often a parent will ask, okay, how many students got 10 on 10? Instead of appreciating and acknowledging a child and saying, great job done, you got 8 on 10, that's brilliant. So the culture itself needs to be looked at, and space given to children to do and excel in what they want to do. It's the other way around. So are our children ready for real life? Given a little bit of the background I just shared, there is a culture of competition all the while, but is there place for compassion? Compassion not only for others, but for one's own self. Are the classrooms getting more and more isolated just for teaching, learning? Is there any place for joyful experiences? These are questions that we ask ourselves when we design our programs and interventions for schools. Are they ready for the real life challenges? Are we providing them any process or any guidance or any opportunities to experience the challenges that they will go through? And then there is the lack of life skills. Do we teach our children how to manage their own well-being? Is this discussed often enough? Is it okay to say I'm not well? Is it okay to say that I'm sad? Is it okay to say I'm depressed and not be judged for that? We have seen with our own experience in our programs that a lack of wellness in children has very, very high consequences. It not only impacts their learning, it impacts their attendance in schools, it impacts their emotion, their physical health, and this gradually leads to impacting their very future. Coming to the government school work that we do, I'll share a story of a program that we have in Tamil Nadu, which is a state in the south of India. 70,000 children are in that program today. When we started, it was with about 30,000 children, and we did a ground need analysis to see, what is it that we can do to help these schools and children do well, to achieve academic excellence. And we hired an agency, an expert, to do this for us. And they came back, and based on their feedback, we designed a beautiful program where we, we designed the program for them, deciding, what age level, what we need to do, what worksheets, what curriculum, what pedagogy, all that, packaged together, trained our teams, sent them out. We learned that there were multi-level, multi-grade classrooms. There were children sitting in grade 5 who didn't know the alphabet. So factoring in all these situations, we designed a program and we inaugurated and started. 4 weeks into the program, when I visited the location and met with the teams, I said, you must have progressed, 4 weeks of work done. And they said, we haven't moved an inch. All these beautiful materials that you have given us, we are not able to transact with the children because the children are so disturbed. They are so coming from families where there is alcoholism, there's sexual abuse. Children are coming hungry to school. And when we start with our learning materials, there is such a disconnect that we just don't know what to do. So we actually put a stop to what we were doing, sat back, reflected. And what really worked was that we said for the next 6 weeks, just get to know the children. Just love the children. Let's just let them be happy to come to school. Let them be able to talk to you, confide in you. Just get to know the children and don't do any of this brilliant program that we sat and designed for them. Just put it aside. There were children who'd never seen a mirror. They would come to school dirty, untidy. Keeping a mirror in the classroom made all the difference. We taught them to wash their hands, comb their hair, distributed toothbrushes, and within 6 weeks, the transformation that we saw, children feeling happy about themselves, children being confident, liking what they saw in the mirror, looking after themselves. And then we started our education program. And today, we are happy to share it's a 4th year now. We are 70,000 children in about more than 700 schools. Children doing very, very well on all indicators. In our programs, we are very particular to measure what we do, and they have shown great progress. This slide on wellness as a definition from the World Health Organization, that wellness is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And if this is what we can ensure for our children while they are in school with us, I think we would have gone a long way in helping them be successful in the future. And since then, we've always followed an inside-out approach in all our programs. We first look at the well-being of the child, keep it integral to the programs we do, and build the programs around them. Taking on the same example that I shared with you in this program, it was an education program, it is an education program, that was the mandate given to us. We look at personal hygiene, social emotional learning, social awareness, physical development, overall general health, and then a healthy breakfast. We soon realized that though the government in India gives a midday meal to government children, that meal comes at about 11:30 during the day. And these kids come to school at 9 o'clock in the morning hungry. So we lose those initial hours, and we've had donors who've now volunteered, and we provide breakfast which may be as simple as a bun or a banana or some biscuits to children when they come in the morning, and we can see the world of difference it has made to education. I mean, if a child is hungry, how can you expect them to be learning? So this is the kind of scenarios we face in India while we set out to achieve educational goals. We have to keep in mind that unless we look at a child holistically, we are not going to get them to be studying well. The impact of this program has been huge. We've improved numeracy literacy. There is improvement in grade level achievement. It is not just basic numeracy literacy, but grade level children are now studying grade level. Their health parameters have improved. Their behavior, according to certain parameters that we have set out to watch, have improved. They are all graduating to the next class. The dropout rate has decreased, and there is improved attendance. And all these parameters that we have been measuring, at Learning Links, we are extremely data-driven. We use data in multiple ways, not only to assess what we are doing or what the children are doing, but in a formative loop all the time to inform our own program delivery as well as to gauge where the children are going. So we've seen remarkable change happening, and I think the credit for this goes to a holistic approach rather than just focusing on the academic piece with all our worksheets and our teaching learning materials and our teacher training alone. This is another solution that we have worked on with schools across India. It's about wellness, not only in a physical space, but also in the digital world. It is in the form of an Olympiad with UNICEF, the Government of India, the Ministry of Technology, and the state governments, where children can participate in an online Olympiad to see where they fare on 9 globally accepted pillars of cyber wellness. And the more we use this in our schools, the more we realize the need for it. And we have today reached out to more than 100,000 children with this program. And not only do these programs impact the children, we've had requests from parents, from teachers, that even we want to participate in a program for digital wellness. As technology solutions in education increase, I think we need to look at digital wellness and well-being of our young people, educate them, educate parents, educate teachers around that. We also feel challenged because in rural India, a lot of the children are first generation learners. And in India, you can hire, even if you don't have a square meal at home, you can hire a mobile phone for 10 rupees an hour. And you have these children hiring these phones and going to all sorts of sites totally unattended. And how do we tackle that? Because we don't have any parents who would understand or who we can reach out to often enough to guide them what to do or not to do in situations like these. So there are various solutions that we are working on, but keeping children safe, educating them, letting them use the internet for learning and growing in a safe way is also a focus area that we have worked on over the years and got good success with the Olympiad model, which is like a game. You have questions, you achieve a certain grade, you get a star, and it's picking up a lot. Again, a thought to share was that are we letting our children be themselves? Today at the policy level, we have, yesterday a gentleman here was mentioning our new education policy. At Learning Links, we've been part of the deliberations and have contributed and suggested to what should go into it, and we are hoping it will be out soon. Give students space and agency to actually construct what they want to do in school. School opens at a particular time, the timetable is laid out. As adults, we are deciding just about everything that the child should do or not do. There is just no space for them to also take decisions on what they want to learn. Maybe it is something that they would excel at, be very, very good at, which is not part of the regular framework in school. Do we give them those chances? And very often the answer is no. Private schools do attempt it to some extent and have space for these kind of activities, but those are small in number. And here we are talking of the large, large numbers of students who actually go into the government school system. The focus, as I had mentioned earlier, is often already on the gaps. What is it that the child does not know? Let's help him learn that. He can't do two-digit addition, let's work with the child for that. He can't do this, he can't do that, let's help him. But why focus on gaps? What is it that the child can do? What is it that the child enjoys doing? Where is our attempt to only focus on those areas? So as I'm saying, spot the strength and not the deficit in the child. We all talk of using technology for personalized education. We all talk of celebrating uniqueness. But I think if we reflect and see, are we really doing that in the way we design our work in schools? I think there is a lot that we could still do to help our children achieve what they want to be. As they say, there is some element of genius in each one, and it is up to the education systems to help nurture that and make each child feel that special thing within them, and they will surely flower out. I'm a great fan of Dr. Zhao, and he says to enable every child to be able to explore, experiment with, and enhance his or her strengths education must change. I don't think we are changing rapidly enough. Sitting in rooms like this, having conversations, I think we are aligned to what we want to do, but when we actually go and see on the ground and truly understand what's happening, the change is not as fast as it should be. And I think at least at Learning Links, we are constantly endeavoring to make that change happen, to catalyze change in policy, in implementation, in teacher training, in leadership training, so that our children have a better opportunity with their futures. And this is a photograph I'd like to end with. So let's make wellness integral to all we do in education. And if we as educationists can nurture happy, healthy, well-grounded and confident children, I think we've done what we set out to do. Thank you.